An anti-abortion, anti-LGBT Christian group pulled a stunt to get themselves refused service at a restaurant. And now you've got a lot of right wingers saying they were denied service for their religion. Is that actually what happened? I want to start with this today because it is so important to understand when we talk about non-discrimination, differences between beliefs and identity. And this is the perfect example to talk about that. So let's start with an article that tells us what happened. It's a CBS News article. Restaurant denies Christian group service over its anti-abortion and LGBTQ stances. Here's what happened. A restaurant in Richmond, Virginia, refused to host a private event for a conservative Christian organization over the group's position on same-sex marriage and abortion rights. The restaurant is called Metzger Bar and Butchery, and it is known as an inclusive establishment that has rarely refused service to willing patrons, but said it denied service to the group in an effort to protect its staff, many of whom are women or members of the LGBTQ community. Quote, recently we refused service to a group that had booked an event with us after the owners of Metzger found out it was a group of donors to a political organization that seeks to deprive women and LGBTQ persons of their basic human rights in Virginia. The move was consistent with Metzger's past practices, was made out of respect for its staff. Quote, we have always refused service to anyone for making our staff uncomfortable or unsafe, and this was the driving force behind our decision. All of our staff are people with rights who deserve dignity and a safe work environment. This is a super interesting legal story because discrimination along religious lines, meaning we don't serve Christians, would be against the law. But political beliefs are not protected outside of Washington, D.C., and that is what is at the crux of this. Now, I'm biased. My view here is that nowhere is there any evidence that these folks were denied service for being Christian. They were denied service for their views on particular issues, their view on abortion, their view on LGBT rights. Now, where it starts to get dicey is that, as we have seen the religious right start to behave over the last few years, is to argue, well, those views are informed by our religion. And by telling us that those views are what is getting us banned or refused service, you are effectively discriminating against our religion because there is no daylight between our view on abortion and LGBT rights and our Christian faith. Now, the other part that's important to consider is that this was a stunt. The Family Foundation is the name of the group that did this. They obviously knew about Metzger's history of supporting inclusivity, including LGBT inclusivity. They knew that. They tried to book an event there. And after they said no, they started soliciting donations because, oh, we've been canceled. They've canceled us, where this was a very clear and known stunt. And this was the outcome. So there's a couple different things that I think are important to talk about. From a legal standpoint, I can't adjudicate here whether, based on all of the facts, a court would find saying no was because of Christianity or saying no was because of political views that are not protected by non-discrimination law. The truth is, we all know there are progressive Christian groups, progressive Catholic groups, etc., endless Jewish groups that have very different views about abortion. There's no rule that says if you are, quote, Christian, you have to have this particular view about abortion or about LGBT people. So we know that you have other perspectives there. And so it's obvious that if this were a progressive Christian group or a Christian group that had a let others decide view, we don't like it, but let others decide about abortion or whatever the case may be, they would not have been refused service. And so by definition, that is not religiously based discrimination. The problem is that thanks to what happened to the judiciary in the United States under Donald Trump, one of the biggest victories that genuinely took place during the Trump administration was the ability of Donald Trump and the success for Donald Trump of moving the judiciary dramatically to the right in the United States. Now, most prominently, we think about the Supreme Court. And of course, that is prominent. That's what most of us know about: long public confirmation hearings. We know the names of these folks, etc. But at many other levels, the appointment of right-wing judges by Donald Trump has led to a judiciary that is much more likely to find, even though really they say it's the views, not the religion, you can't separate those religious views. And this is effectively religiously based discrimination. You must host the family foundation. There are judges in the United States that would find that, and that's very, very scary. Now, at the back or the bottom or the top of this, however you want to describe it, there's always the hypocrisy with these people. They want to have it both ways. On the one hand, they want to be able to discriminate against the LGBT people, whether it's the anti-gay baker or whatever story you want to look at. They want that freedom, but they also want everyone else to have to accept and suck up and allow their bigotry and their discrimination and their whatever it may be in the particular circumstance, xenophobia or homophobia or whatever the case may be. And then they frame it as religious. When they want to do the discrimination, it's their right because of their religion. And then when they want to demand that they be serviced, they say it's discrimination not to serve us. They want it both ways. There is not a lot of exciting stuff happening in hospitality from this particular perspective right now, but the right to refuse service is a real thing. And as long as you're not violating non-discrimination law, which includes religion, etc., then you should be allowed to do it. I believe that the restaurant was well within its rights to say, because of your views, they didn't even mention their religion. Because of your views, we are not going to offer you service. We will see what it leads to in terms of lawsuits. And if there is an outcome, then we will get to that. Before you go, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can click the subscribe button below or above or wherever it is on your screen. And if you want to support my work even more strongly, the best way is to get a membership at joinpacman.com and subscribe to the podcast for The David Pakman Show. There you can check out interviews, longer clips, and much more. It's on all the big podcasting platforms. Just search for The David Pakman Show, and all the links are also down below in the video description.